Hello and welcome to another lesson on blockchain. And in the previous video, when I was talking about centralized, decentralized and distributed systems, I mentioned that blockchain is a decentralized and a distributed system, but there are elements that aren't that. There are elements that are centralized, heavily centralized. And I will give a few examples in a moment. And what do I mean by that? Blockchain in itself is definitely truly distributed and decentralized. So at its core it is, but there are applications. So let's talk about the case of Bitcoin, because that is the most popular application. So let's talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin, that also in itself is decentralized and distributed, but with Bitcoin there is something called exchanges. And exchanges just I'll be covering this in a separate video in more depth, but essentially exchanges allow the facilitation of transfers and transactions to take place a lot easier from the user's perspective. It's just a friendlier interface. It's just a lot easier to do it that way. If you think of an exchange almost like a bank, essentially, they help facilitate that. They're essentially an intermediary, and it is the intermediary that is centralized. And as a lot of blockchain applications, one of the biggest being Bitcoin, uses intermediaries that are centralized, there comes the problems that you naturally get with centralized systems, in that they have their own policies, just as systems like PayPal and banks do, and MasterCard and Visa do. If something goes wrong with them, there's a good chance that they could essentially lose your, so I'm going to talk in the case of currency, so Bitcoin, for example, they could lose your currency, and that has happened. And there's a great example, and that is Mt. Gox. In 2014, they were suspended. So in 2014, they were suspended because they lost, not 700, it was 850,000 Bitcoins. At the time, that was worth roughly, I think, $400 or so million. So at the time, they lost $400 million worth of Bitcoin. If you look at today's market value, which is just shy of $5,000, that same 850,000 Bitcoins would be worth over $4 billion. So over $4 billion worth of Bitcoins were lost from Mt. Gox, which is an exchange. Mt. Gox at its height was handling over 70% of the Bitcoins on the market. It definitely had a monopoly, and it lost all of it. There were a mixture of reasons why the coins got lost. Fortunately, over 200,000 have been retrieved, but there are many reasons why the coins were lost. There was theft. The obvious one, theft occurred and the Bitcoins were lost. So people within the company were taking coins, and I think they had been doing that since 2011. So since 2011, so 3 years, they had been stealing, and I'm going to say money just to bring it home to you what exactly they were doing. And there were a bunch of other reasons. I think there was hacks involved, and there were so many other factors that occurred to them losing it. And I think the most important thing to take away is they were centralized. And we had this amazing system called blockchain, which facilitated transactions. They could be transactions of money, of wills, of educational achievements. And on top of that, Bitcoin was built and various other platforms as well, Bitcoin being the biggest one. And again, that was an amazing platform that was decentralized, distributed, and it was essentially a money-based platform in what it has been used for. But on top of that, to aid the ease of use, we had exchanges. I'm not going to say Mt. Gox here because just exchanges in general. And these exchanges aren't centralized. I'm positive in the future we'll get some form of decentralized and distributed exchanges. It is early days in blockchain and Bitcoin as well, and many other applications of blockchain. But there are several exchanges. There was Mt. Gox. There's blockchain.info, and that allows Ethereum transactions on top of Bitcoin as well. There's Coinbase, which at the moment is one of the most widely spread ones. There's CEX.io, which is fantastic. There is Genesis. Genesis is mainly for bigger transactions, like a lot of these will own for like a small beginning account will only allow transactions of like a few $100s. Genesis, I believe, only allows transactions above $25,000 or so. So that's more for corporations or overall just rich people that are looking to transfer large amounts. But all of these are centralized. Coinbase, which I said is one of the most popular ones, has, if you look at the terms and conditions and their privacy policy, there are similarities to PayPal, and that's definitely not centralized. I mean, that's definitely not decentralized and distributed. That's centralized. So that is what I meant by blockchain having elements of decentralized and distributed. I mean, having centralized features within blockchain. It's more in the implementations. So I hope that helped clear that up. And thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video.